The quantum relay station orbiting Epsilon Eridani hummed with the constant background noise of galactic communications. Operator Vrisk Nathun yawned, his 4 eyes blinking asynchronously as he monitored the endless stream of data. 17. Years at this post had taught him one thing: space was mostly predictable, mostly boring, and completely manageable, until today. The alert came as a soft chime, easily missed if Vrisk hadn't been reaching for his stim T. A signal, originating from a seemingly empty sector of space, grid 9783, an unremarkable patch of void between the Cygnus arm and nowhere important. "That's odd," Vrisk muttered, mandibles clicking as he zoomed in on the anomaly. The signal wasn't using any known compression algorithm or encryption standard. It pulsed irregularly, almost organically. Vrisk, following protocol, forwarded the data to his supervisor, Lazara Krith, the station's chief signal analyst. Minutes later, her voice crackled over the comm. "Are you certain this isn't equipment? Malfunction?" Lazara's tone carried the characteristic condescension of the Mithrani species. "Triple-checked. It's real, and it's getting stronger." 12 hours later, the Galactic Union's leading xenolinguists crowded the primary communication hub on Centauri Prime. The signal had been classified as Priority Alpha, possible first contact with a previously unknown spacefaring civilization. Dr. Evren Kalu, humanity's foremost representative in the Union's diplomatic corps, shouldered through the crowd of aliens. As the only human in the room, she stood a head shorter than most, but her reputation commanded respect across 17 systems. "It's an SOS," she announced, silencing the chamber. "An ancient human emergency signal using primitive radio waves." Grand Admiral Pel Voss of the hegemony snorted. "Impossible. Humans have been part of the Union for barely 30 years. You didn't have interstellar capabilities when we found you." Evren's eyes narrowed. "Exactly, which means someone or something out. There is broadcasting a human distress call from a region of space we've never reached." The room erupted in speculation. The Zix delegates chittered nervously about temporal anomalies. The Drakasi ambassadors hissed theories about phantom echoes. But it was Quantum Archivist Oren who finally asked the question everyone avoided. What if, the ancient crystalline being suggested, its facets refracting light as it spoke, humans were out there before we found them? The implications sent shock waves through the assembly. The signal was growing stronger and now carried fragments of voice, unmistakably human, speaking in an outdated dialect of English. "Anyone, receive. Project Lighthouse. Earth. Desperate." The Union Council convened in emergency session. A decision was reached. A research vessel would investigate, crewed by representatives from each major species, including humanity. They selected the UES Pathfinder, captained by Devra Moraine, a decorated human officer known for her unorthodox approach to cosmic mysteries. As the Pathfinder prepared for departure, Evren confronted Moraine in the ship's observatory. "The Council's keeping something from us," Evren said. "They're terrified of what we might find." Captain Moraine gazed out at the stars, her expression unreadable. "Wouldn't you be? If this signal is what we think, humans somehow reaching deep space centuries before official first contact, it rewrites Union history." "It's more than that," Evren replied. "It challenges their superiority narrative, the story they tell themselves, about finding us, guiding us, elevating us." Moraine nodded slowly. "Perhaps humanity was never as primitive as they believed." As the Pathfinder engaged its quantum drive, neither woman could have predicted the truth awaiting them, a truth that would forever change humanity's place in the cosmic hierarchy and unleash forces the galaxy had spent millennia trying to forget. The coordinates were set. The journey would take 17 days. The signal continued to grow stronger. Lieutenant Ryvan Kazai hated the dreams. Ever since the Pathfinder entered quantum slipstream 3 days ago, the same nightmare had plagued his sleep. A dark void, a distant cry, and an overwhelming sense of something vast and ancient stirring awake. Proximity alert, the ship's AI area announced, jarring Riven from his thoughts. Unknown object detected at coordinates 227-984-553. Captain Moraine strode onto the bridge, her movements precise despite the artificial gravity fluctuations that accompanied near-light travel. Analysis? It appears to be a probe, reported Science Officer Talix, her feathered crest rising in surprise. Extremely primitive by our standards. Solar-powered with rudimentary fusion backup. Dating algorithms suggest it's approximately 400 Earth years old. The holographic display revealed a weather-beaten craft barely 5 meters long, its hull marred by micrometeorite impacts. Most striking was the unmistakable human script etched into its side. Voyager, Moraine read aloud, her voice barely a whisper. That's impossible. Evren Kalu, who had joined them on the bridge, paled visibly. Voyager was one of Earth's earliest deep space probes, launched in the late 20th century. It should be nowhere near this sector. Admiral Pel Voss snorted derisively. Your historical records must be flawed. Bring it aboard, ordered Moraine, ignoring the hegemony official. Full containment protocols. Hours later, the ancient probe rested in the Pathfinder's examination bay, surrounded by the ship's multinational scientific team. Its golden record, humanity's first message to the stars, remained intact, though the probe itself showed signs of tampering. Sections had been removed and replaced with technology that resembled neither human engineering nor anything known to Union science. Look at this. Dr. Nix Orani, the ship's xenotech specialist, pointed to a crystalline lattice embedded within the probe's communication array. It's processing the original programming but amplifying it exponentially. This is what's generating our SOS. Someone found Voyager, Evren murmured, modified it, and sent it back toward human space as a beacon. Or a warning, added Quantum. Archivist Orin, its crystalline form pulsing with agitation. The modified components defied analysis. They operated on principles that contradicted standard Union physics, generating energy from seemingly nothing, a theoretical impossibility that nonetheless hummed before their eyes. While the scientists debated, Commander Lith Tavara, the ship's security chief, noticed something odd in the probe's shadow pattern. Captain, she called, mandibles clicking nervously. There's something embedded in the hull, not part of the original structure. Carefully extracted, the object was a data, crystal unlike any technology currently used in the galaxy. When interfaced with the ship's systems, after considerable modification, it projected a holographic message showing a humanoid figure in an antiquated spacesuit. This message is for the people of Earth, the figure began, voice distorted, but unmistakably human. My name is Commander Alara Voss of the ESS Horizon. If you're receiving this, then Project Lighthouse succeeded. We've been stranded in what we've designated the Obsidian Reach for 17 years. We are not alone out here, and what we've discovered must reach humanity before. The message fragmented, damaged sections creating gaps before continuing. They call themselves the Precursors, technology beyond comprehension. Earth is in danger if they ever learn, sending coordinates to our location. The final segment showed Commander Voss looking over her shoulder in alarm before the transmission abruptly terminated. Silence engulfed the examination bay. ESS Horizon? Talix finally asked. I'm unfamiliar with this vessel in human history. Captain Moraine and Evren exchanged knowing glances. That's because it doesn't exist, Moraine said carefully. At least, not officially. Admiral Pel Voss advanced threateningly. Explain. Now. Project Lighthouse was classified, Evren admitted reluctantly. An experimental FTL program from before, First contact. It was deemed a catastrophic failure. All personnel lost, all records sealed. Yet here they are, Riven whispered, sending an SOS from the stars. The coordinates embedded in the message pointed to a system less than 3 days' journey away, a system absent from all Union charts, as if deliberately erased from galactic memory. The Pathfinder emerged from quantum space with a shudder. Systems, temporarily offline as reality reasserted itself. When the view screens flickered back to life, the bridge crew fell silent. They had arrived at the coordinates, but instead of finding a stranded vessel or habitable planet, they faced a massive, gravitational anomaly, an artificial structure encircling a dying star. A Dyson sphere, theoretical to most Union species, yet manifestly real before them. "Aria, full spectral analysis," Captain Moraine ordered, her voice steady despite the impossible sight. "Structure composed of unknown alloy," the AI reported. "Approximately 2.8 astronomical units in diameter. Multiple entry points detected. Energy signatures indicate portions are active and powered." That's not possible," stammered Pelvos. "No civilization possesses such technology." Quantum archivist Orin drifted forward, its crystalline form vibrating with what might have been fear. "Not currently, no. But the legends speak of the ancients, those who came before the modern galactic era, those whose empire collapsed millions of years ago." "The precursors," Evren whispered, recalling Commander Voss's fragmented message. Arya interrupted. "Captain, I'm detecting a transmission emanating from the sphere. Same frequency as our original SOS, but significantly stronger." "Put it through," the bull voice that filled the bridge was haggard but unmistakably human. "This is Acting Captain Mira Novak of the Earth Science Ship Horizon. Identify yourself or withdraw immediately." After 17 years of isolation, the survivors of Project Lighthouse had developed protocols of their own. It took hours of verification, ancient Earth references, historical details no alien would know, before they agreed to guide the Pathfinder to a docking port on the sphere's equatorial band. As the airlock cycled open, revealing the interior of the massive structure, Riven felt his nightmares rushing back. The corridor before them stretched impossibly far, walls inscribed with mathematical equations beyond current understanding. A delegation awaited them. 5 humans in makeshift uniforms, their faces weathered by time and hardship. Their leader, a tall woman with silver-streaked dark hair, stepped forward. "Acting Captain Novak," she introduced herself. "Welcome aboard what we've come to call the Nexus." The tale they shared in the following hours defied belief. The ESS Horizon, Earth's first attempt at interstellar travel, had utilized experimental fold drive technology derived from recovered alien artifacts found buried on Mars. Their maiden voyage had catapulted them not just beyond Earth's solar system, but outside known space entirely. "We crashed here," explained Chief Engineer Dario Reyes, gesturing at holographic schematics of their ruined ship. "The Nexus was dormant then, but our arrival triggered something." "The sphere began waking up," Novak continued. "Systems activating one by one, and we weren't alone. The precursors had left. Guardians." The crew exchanged nervous glances, before Novak led them deeper into the structure, to an observation deck overlooking an immense chamber. Below, suspended in a brilliantly lit containment field, floated a massive crystalline entity, similar to archivist Orin, but vastly larger and more complex. "This is what they called the Architect," Novak said. "One of the last precursors, preserved in a form of stasis. It communicated with us, showed us things." "The precursors didn't just vanish," added Dr. Ilana Vex, the Horizon's xenobiologist. "They evolved beyond physical form. What remained behind were seeds, cosmic blueprints for something greater. And humanity," Evren Kalu realized with growing horror, "accidentally stumbled upon their nursery." Novak nodded grimly. The architect believes we're related to them, descendants or creations or something in between. Our arrival wasn't chance. The artifacts that led us here were breadcrumbs, left for us to follow when we were ready. But we weren't ready, Reyes interjected. That's why we sent the warning. The knowledge contained in this sphere, its power beyond comprehension, dimension-altering technology, creation physics. If it falls into unprepared hands, Moraine completed the thought. It could destroy everything. As if responding to their conversation, the massive chamber began to hum with energy. The crystalline architect pulsed with internal light, and every screen in the observation deck flared to life, displaying the same urgent message in ancient script. The hunters have awakened. Captain Moraine recognized the tactical situation deteriorating before anyone else. "Explain," she demanded, eyes fixed on the pulsing crystalline entity below. "What hunters?" Acting Captain Novak's face darkened. "We're not the only ones who received the precursor's signal. Something else has been searching for this place. For millennia." Alarms blared throughout the massive structure. Holographic displays materialized around them, showing multiple quantum ruptures forming at the edge of the system. Ships emerged, if they could be called ships. They resembled obsidian spiders, their hulls absorbing rather than reflecting light. "The Voidborn," Archivist Oren whispered, its crystalline form dimming with what could only be described as terror. "They were supposed to be extinct." Admiral Pel Voss whirled on the ancient being. "You know of these creatures?" "Only from forbidden archives," Oren admitted. "They hunted the precursors across the cosmos, not a species but a weapon, created to eradicate what the precursors represented." "Which is what, exactly?" demanded. Engineer Reyes answered instead of Oren. "Evolution beyond current understanding. The precursors discovered how to encode consciousness into the fabric of reality itself. The Voidborn were designed to prevent that ascension." "By whom?" Riven asked. Novak's reply was simple. "Fear." On the displays, the spider-like vessels moved with impossible precision, deploying smaller craft that attached themselves to the Dyson sphere's outer shell. "They're breaching the structure," reported Lith Tavara, the security chief. "Multiple penetration points." The massive crystalline architect pulsed rhythmically now, each flash sending information streaming across nearby interfaces. Dr. Vex translated, "It's activating defense systems, but many are still dormant. The sphere isn't fully awake yet." "Can we help?" asked Moraine. "The Pathfinder has advanced weapon systems." Novak shook her head. "Against these things, it would be suicide. Our only advantage is the architect's connection to this structure. It's been preparing for their return." The Horizon survivors led them deeper into the sphere, through corridors that shifted and reconfigured themselves as they passed. They entered what appeared to be a control center, a massive chamber where the walls themselves served as interfaces, responding to thought as much as touch. "The architect has been teaching us how to operate parts of this technology," explained Dr. Vex. "It's like learning quantum physics as a toddler, but we've made progress." 17 years is hardly enough time to master precursor technology, scoffed Pel Voss. "Unless," Evren suggested carefully, "humanity has some innate connection to it." The thought hung in the air, disturbing in its implications. If humans were indeed related to the precursors, created by them, descended from them, or somehow connected, it would explain why Earth had been kept isolated until relatively recently in galactic history. The architect's voice, if it could be called a voice, manifested as patterns of light and vibration that translated into concepts rather than words. The seed must be protected. The cycle must continue. "What seed?" demanded Moraine. Novak hesitated before answering. "Us. Humanity. We're carrying something in our genetic code, something the precursors hid there, a key to their knowledge, their evolution path." That's why the Voidborn are here, added Reyes, and why they'll target Earth next. A violent tremor shook the chamber. On the displays, Voidborn boarding parties had penetrated the outer defenses. We need to activate the Nexus core, Novak declared. It's what the architect has been preparing us for. What does that mean? Asked Riven. It means making a choice, Dr. Vex said gravely. The precursors left behind more than knowledge. They left power, the ability to reshape reality according to intention. The Nexus core can channel that power, but it requires a consciousness to direct it. A human consciousness, Evren realized. That's why the original SOS was human. The architect wanted to draw more of us here. Another explosion rocked the structure. Closer this time. The Voidborn were advancing methodically, destroying everything in their path. We have minutes, not hours, warned Lith Tavara. Novak led them to a sealed chamber at the center of the control room. Inside stood a single platform surrounded by swirling energy patterns that defied physical logic. 17 years we've worked toward this moment, she said. The architect prepared us, but warned that activating the core would have consequences beyond our comprehension. What kind of consequences? Demanded Pelvos. Evolution, replied Dr. Vex. Transformation, becoming something more. The choice now lay before them. Activate the mysterious core and unleash unknown powers, potentially changing humanity forever, or face certain destruction at the hands of the Voidborn. Lieutenant Riven Kazai volunteered first. I'll do it. Captain Moraine blocked his path. No, we don't understand the consequences. There's no time for debate, Novak countered, as another explosion shook the chamber. The Voidborn will reach the core within minutes. The architect's crystalline presence manifested in the room, its form now a cascade of geometric patterns that seemed to exist in more dimensions than should be possible. Its communication came as conceptual waves rather than words. The seed requires plural consciousness. One alone cannot contain the awakening. It needs more than one person, translated Dr. Vex. A collective consciousness to guide the transformation. How many? Asked Evren. Unknown, replied Novak. But the architect suggests representatives from multiple species would create greater stability. Moraine stepped forward. Then I volunteer as humanity's representative. And I, added Evren. 2. Everyone's surprise, Admiral Pelvos joined them. The hegemony will not be excluded from whatever power emerges. One by one, representatives from each species aboard the Pathfinder stepped forward. Talix, with her feathered crest trembling but resolute. Archivist Orin pulsing with anticipation. Security Chief Lith Tavara clicking her mandibles nervously. 7. Consciousnesses, noted Dr. Vex. 7 species. 7 perspectives, added Novak. Perhaps that's what the precursors intended all along. Not just humanity's evolution, but the galaxy's. The chamber doors buckled under external pressure. The Voidborn had arrived. Now or never, Moraine declared. The 7 volunteers positioned themselves around the platform as Dr. Vex and the Horizon crew initiated the activation sequence. Energy patterns coalesced, forming a latticework of light that enveloped the volunteers. Riven, watching from the periphery, saw Captain Moraine's expression shift from determination to wonder as her body began to shimmer with internal light. Similar transformations affected each volunteer, their physical forms remaining intact but somehow transcending their original limitations. The pursuing Voidborn breached the chamber just as the process reached its apex. Obsidian figures moved with predatory grace, weapons raised, only to freeze as waves of golden energy radiated from the transformed volunteers. What followed defied description. The 7 conscious entities merged without losing their individuality, becoming a collective intelligence that operated simultaneously as one and many. Power cascaded through them, reshaping their understanding of reality even as they reshaped reality itself. Captain Moraine's voice, though unchanged, now carried undertones of cosmic weight. We see now. We understand. The void-born attackers recoiled, their weapons useless against beings who now existed partially outside conventional physics. With graceful gestures that bent light and probability, the transformed collective repelled the invasion, sending the void-born ships tumbling back through the quantum ruptures from which they'd emerged. The knowledge, continued Evren, her eyes now containing galaxies, was never meant to be hoarded or destroyed. It was meant to be shared, to elevate all sentient life when the time was right. Admiral Pel Voss, his former arrogance transformed into profound understanding, added, "The precursors weren't a single species. They were a coalition, just like we are now, just like the Union could become." The massive Dyson sphere hummed with renewed energy as dormant systems activated under the guidance of the newly transformed collective. Ancient machinery, designed to reshape stellar material and harness quantum potentialities, awakened after millions of years. This is what humanity sent into the galaxy, archivist Oren observed, its crystalline form now intertwined with streams of consciousness. Not just an SOS, but a catalyst. By stumbling upon this place before your official entrance into galactic society, humans became the key that unlocked potential the Union had forgotten existed. For those watching, Riven, Novak, and the others, the transformation represented both miracle and enigma. The 7 volunteers retained their physical forms, but had clearly transcended their original limitations, becoming something simultaneously individual and collective. "What happens now?" asked Engineer Reyes. "Now," replied the transformed Moraine, "we bring this knowledge home, not as conquerors or gods, but as guides. The precursors never intended to rule. They intended to elevate. The seed they planted in humanity wasn't dominance, but connection." "And the Voidborn?" questioned Novak. "They'll return," admitted the collective voice of all 7. "Fear always returns, but next time, we'll be ready." As the Dyson sphere stabilized under their influence, the transformed beings shared a unified vision, a galaxy where technology and consciousness evolved together, where barriers between species dissolved not through conquest, but comprehension. The message that had drawn them across the stars had been more than an SOS. It had been an invitation to witness the next step in cosmic evolution. 3 months. After the events at the Nexus, the Galactic Union Council chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from all 127 member species gathered in concentric rings around the central platform where Admiral Kelnar, the hegemony's highest military authority, delivered his report. "The Pathfinder returned to Union space 17 days ago," he stated, voice amplified throughout the vast chamber. "Its crew reports discovering ancient precursor technology and repelling a potential threat known as the Voidborn." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The Zix delegation chittered nervously. The crystalline Orani collective pulsed with agitation. "What the report fails to mention," continued Admiral Kelnar with barely concealed anger, "is that 7 individuals, including a Union captain and diplomat, underwent unauthorized genetic and consciousness modification. They have become something else." The chamber doors parted, and the 7 transformed beings entered. Though they retained their original appearances, something fundamental had changed. They moved with perfect coordination, as if sharing a single mind while maintaining their individuality. Light seemed to bend subtly around them, and the air hummed with potential energy. Captain Moraine, or what had once been Captain Moraine, addressed the council. "We understand your fear. Change is always frightening, especially change you didn't choose." "What exactly have you become?" demanded the Zix Prime speaker, compound eyes reflecting the transformed beings with fractured unease. "We remain ourselves," answered Evren Kalu, "but connected, to each other, to the universe, to possibilities previously inaccessible. The precursors designed the Nexus as an evolutionary catalyst, not a weapon. Yet you destroyed the Voidborn. Fleet, countered Admiral Kelnar. We defended ourselves, corrected transformed Admiral Pelvos, shocking his former hegemony colleagues with his changed perspective. The Voidborn were created by ancient fear, the same fear I see in this chamber now. Union security forces stood at alert positions throughout the chamber, energy weapons powered but unused. Everyone sensed that conventional weapons would likely prove useless against these transformed beings. High Elder Torvix of the Sentinel Conclave rose from her seat, her ancient voice cutting through the tension. What do you intend to do with this power? Why return to Union space at all? It was Archivist Orin who answered, its crystalline form now interwoven with strands of golden energy. Because isolation was the original mistake. The precursors didn't fall because of the Voidborn. They fell because they separated themselves from other life. Evolution without connection becomes stagnation. Lieutenant Riven Kazai, who had accompanied the transformed Seven back to Union, space, stepped forward. I've observed them since the transformation. They haven't lost their individuality or their compassion. If anything, they've gained understanding we desperately need. Understanding of what? Asked the Drakasi ambassador. Of what comes next, answered Moraine. The galaxy stands at a crossroads. The Voidborn will return in greater numbers. They always do when evolution threatens the status quo. Without preparation, without unity, the Union will fall as the precursors did. The Seven moved to the center of the chamber where they generated a holographic display unlike any technology the Council had seen. It showed the galaxy not as stars and planets, but as streams of consciousness and potential, a living entity rather than mere matter. This is what the precursors discovered, explained Evren. Reality isn't fixed. Consciousness shapes it. Together, we can guide that shaping toward harmony instead of destruction. You speak of godhood, accused Admiral Kelnar. We speak of responsibility, corrected Security Chief Tavara. Power without wisdom destroys. The precursors learned this too late. As debate raged through the Council, Dr. Nix Orani, the Xenotech, specialist who had first analyzed the modified Voyager probe, made a startling announcement from her research station on Centauri Prime. The signal has changed, she reported via quantum link. The SOS has become something else. Throughout Union space, communication systems displayed the same message, a mathematical sequence that, when decoded, revealed the DNA structure of every known sentient species interwoven with something new. A blueprint for connection beyond current understanding. This is what humanity sent into the stars, Moraine told the Silent Council. Not conquest, not dominance, connection. The precursors chose Earth not because humans were special, but because they remained isolated long enough to develop differently. To preserve ancient genetic markers the precursors had seeded across the galaxy millions of years ago. All of us carry fragments of the same cosmic heritage, added Talix, her feathered form now luminous with inner light. Humanity simply retained certain sequences that unlocked the next step. And now, asked High Elder Torvix. Now we offer a choice, replied the Seven in perfect unison. Evolution together or stagnation apart. The Nexus Core can be activated for representatives of any species ready to take the next step. Not to become us, but to become more fully themselves while joining a greater whole. The proposal sent shockwaves through galactic society. Fear and hope battled across worlds. Some called for quarantine or even destruction of the transformed beings. Others saw opportunity for transcendence. On Earth, humanity faced its greatest test since first contact. The knowledge that humans carried genetic markers placed by ancient precursors challenged religious and scientific worldviews alike. Yet the evidence was undeniable. Something in human DNA had helped unlock cosmic potential dormant for millions of years. 17 days after the council meeting, volunteers from 12 species underwent the transformation process aboard the reactivated Nexus. 17 months later, that number had grown to 63 species. Each transformed individual retained their unique perspective while gaining connection to a growing cosmic consciousness. When the Voidborn returned in force, a vast armada emerging from the darkness between galaxies, they found not the fragmented, fearful civilizations they had hunted before, but a union transformed by shared understanding and purpose. As Lieutenant Ryvan Kazai, now Captain Kazai of the UES Lighthouse, watched the confrontation from Earth's orbital station, he reflected on how it had all begun. With a simple human distress call echoing across the void, carrying within it the seeds of cosmic evolution. The SOS from the stars had been answered, not with rescue, but with transformation. Humanity had accidentally sent something the galaxy wasn't ready for, the key to its next evolutionary leap, and the universe would never be the same.